All right. So um, today we're going to continue from the last time there. We stop at this form, how you can work with form in JavaScript. Don't forget any form that you are creating there in your HTML. The browser is going to handle the submission of that form, which means here on the form you can specify where you want to submit the form to. So this action here is going to be the URL of where you want this form to be processed. But this is just the old way of handling stuff. I mentioned it that I want to start recording. I mentioned it that I want to start recording. So this is old way of handling form, which means yeah, you can just specify the URL of the backend that needs to process this form. And if you don't specify anything for this action, it's going to submit it back to the same page that you are currently working on there, like that. But instead of allowing the browser to handle the form processing, you can actually do the same thing yourself from JavaScript. So with JavaScript events, you can listen for the submit event, and once that event is fired on the page, you can prevent the default action that the browser is going to carry out anytime a form is submitted. Because if you don't handle the event, so currently I've commented out the code that we have before. So let me click on this button to bring out the modal, and inside our modal here we are going to put in the details that we used last time too. So here right now I have this info inside the box, and once I click on this sign up, you see that this thing is going to, the browser is going to handle it by sending the details into the URL. So everything that I just typed now are sent to this URL. Why is it sending into this URL? Is because on the page that we are working on in our HTML, we did not give anything to the action. And you know that this action is just a link. And you know that again, if you don't put anything for a link, it's going to use the current page you are working on. So if you use action like this without any value, or you don't even specify it at all, it's going to submit the form back to the current page that you're working on. And what's our page here? It is this index.html. And that's the reason why it's submitting the details into this place. How is it submitting the details? We have different forms, or we have different methods that your form can use to submit the details. One of the method, which is the one is using by default, is known as get, which is something that you might set to, or you don't set. You don't set it, that's what is going to be there. So this is the default method is going to use to set or to send the details. And as you can see here, the default one is get. And once you use the method get, or if you don't specify it, then whatever you have inside your form that have name attached to them, they are going to be submitted to whatever the URL you put inside this action. So if I want to submit my form now to Google, I just need to put the Google here. So for example, https, which is the address of Google, www.google.com, like this. Then after that, I'm going to have search, then this q equal to whatever you put here, or I can just leave it like this, then save. So what this means is that once this form is submitted, it's going to send it to Google. But which method is it using? Is using the get method. And what is the get method going to do? What the get method is going to do there is that whatever controls that you have under that form that have name attached to it, they are going to be sent along with the URL that you specify for this action. So let me go back, reload the page, then click on this get started button, fill in the details once again, put the name, and once this form is submitted now, you see that it will now submit the form to Google. And as you can see that everything that we type is now in the URL along with the action that we specify for our form. So you can use this action to submit form to any website or any backend services that can handle your form. But right now, Google is not expecting anything like this from us, so it will not work at all like that. But
The major thing here is that the browser can handle the form on its own without you coming in to act as intermediary there like that. But we don't want it to be like that. We want to process our form first. We want to check whether whatever the user type is okay or not, or whether they are typing, because right now what we are expecting from them is to type their full name, and the full name that we are expecting there needs to be two names, your first name and the last name. But if you look at the details here now, we are putting three names. We don't want anything like this. We only want them to put two names, not three. But the browser cannot do all this thing, even though it comes with some of these goodies too, but it is not that rich like you working directly from JavaScript by handling everything yourself. You can actually talk to the browser too, that you have a pattern that you want this thing to be, but the error message is not that good compared to something that you can do yourself there like that. For example, now if I click on sign up, as you can see, it brings out this message out that we need to type something. But I don't want this kind of a message. I want the message to pop up or to pop under the box here. And again too, the border should turn to red. All these things you can do with the normal browser too, but doing it directly from JavaScript, it gives you more power to control and to design it anyhow you want. But how do you hijack the form from the browser? So how do you hijack the form from the browser? In order for you to hijack the form submission from the browser, what you need to do is to listen for the event, because everything that will happen on the page are going to fire the event. And the event that is going to get fired anytime your form is submitted is known as this submit event. And that's what we have on this line 30 here. So on this contact form, which is what we are using here to select the form on our page, because we know that we only have one form on the page. So we are targeting this form in our JavaScript, and we are adding the event listener on it. And what type of event we are really looking for? We are listening for submit event. And what is this submit event going to do, or when is it going to be fired? The submit event is going to be fired anytime you trigger the submit on your form. And when is this thing going to happen? Is when we click on this sign up button, because that's the only button that we have inside the form. And by default, any button that you have inside the form, they are going to act like a submit button. Even though you can change them if you don't want it to be a submit button. There, for example, if you want to have another button, but this one now is going to close instead of it to submit your form there. But right now, the two button will only submit the form. So if you don't want any one of them to submit the form, then you can change the type to button like this. So when you're inside form, anytime you have button and you don't specify the type to this type button here, it's going to act like a submit inside the form there. But if it is outside, it will not submit. But if it is inside, it will act like a submit button. So now this one, as you can see, is not submitting our form again. It's only this one that is going to submit the form. And how is it possible? It's because we give you this type button. The only button that can submit your form is when you give it this type submit like this. But you don't need to do this if you have a button inside form. That's what it's going to do by default. Any button you have inside form is going to act like this submit. So you don't even need to type this one at all. But if you don't want your button to act like a submit action there for that form, then you have to change the type to this button or reset if you want to use it to reset your controls. For example, here we can use this one as a reset, and any data we have inside our form, it should be able to reset the data once you click on close. As you can see now, everything wipe off. I don't need to put any JavaScript there because we are using the type reset, the reset here. And any reset button you have inside your form, it will clear any input that you have or any controls that you have under the form that has been filled there like that. But if you type submit or you use button directly, is going to be submit button, and anytime you click on it, it's going to trigger the form submission. And once the form is submitted, JavaScript is going to see it because we are listening for this event. And once you see it there, then we do some processing. But don't forget, the browser have its own way of handling the form. The browser have its own way of handling the form. So we don't want the browser to still keep performing whatever it used to do anytime the form is submitted. And that's the reason why we have this line 31 here, because the events that we are getting back have something known as this prevent default. So this event, it have this method or it have this functionality that you can use to prevent whatever the browser is going to do with that event by default. Whatever the browser used to do with that event before, then you can prevent it. So you are telling the browser that whatever you used to do anytime this event occur, I don't want you to do it again. I want to be the one that will be in charge and do anything that I want myself. Don't forget, once you submit your form, by default, the browser is going to process it and use the get method, because that's what we are using there. And it's going to submit it to whatever the URL that you pass inside the action of the form. But now we don't want this action to handle our form. We don't want to send it anywhere. We want to handle it in our JavaScript. So in order for you to do that, once again, you need to select the form. And once you select your form, or once you target your form, you add the event of this submit, because that's the one that is going to get fired anytime your form is submitted. But in order for the browser to stop doing whatever it used to do with that form before, we need to call this prevent default on the event that you are receiving it. So this event here, I'm using EV. If you want, you can use E. If you want, you can spell it in full. This is just the parameter that is representing what the browser will be sending later on when this event is fired. So instead of me using the EV here now, I can just convert it to the same text, because I've changed it. Again, too, anywhere we're using EV, we need to change it to event. The same thing down here too, we need to change it to event, because I'm not calling it EV again. I'm not calling it an event. So you can call it any name you want. If you like, call it K, call it Y, call it Z, it will still work. But note that whatever name you use here, that's the same name you are going to use to extract out the details from it. And one of the details that we're extracting there is this email and the full name. So how do we have access to what the user actually typed in the box? So how do we have access to what the user typed from the box? So the user is going to type inside this email, and they are going to type inside this box here. But how do we have access to them? Luckily for us, the form always know about every controls that is under it. Anytime you are working with a form, once you put controls there, the form knows about them, and you can get to each one of them by using the array or by using the index based on the way you arrange them in your form. So since this one is coming first, it means it's going to be the index 0 when we want to access it under the form. Since this one is the second one, there is going to be index 1 and so forth like that. Don't forget all these buttons too. They are parts of the control too, because they are part of the form. And how do you have access to them? To have access to them on your form, just access them as if you are accessing items in the array. And we've talked about all this before. So let me comment it out first and just console log out this event. So let me move this thing up and console log out it again. Go back to the page. And once this thing is done loading, let's submit the form now. Let's just put some details here and now click on sign up. And as you can see, the stuff is not submitting anything to Google again. Even though that link is still there, but it's not submitting anything again, because we are now hijacking whatever the browser used to do anytime this form is submitted. And how do we do that again? The way we did it is by adding the event listener on this form. And what type of event are we listening for? Submit. But in order for us to stop the browser from doing what it normally does here, we need to prevent the default. So this event, it's coming from here, which is what JavaScript will be sending to me, or what the browser will be sending to me when the form is submitted. That's the event you are seeing here. So the event is this. So this variable that I have here is what I'm using to receive everything that will be sent down to me. And that thing that is being sent down to me, as you can see here, there's a target there. There is this submitter here. The submitter is the button that you click on that submit the form. While the target is the form that trigger the submit event there. But we already have access to this one. So we already have access to it, which is this form here. And that's the reason why you see that on this line, I'm calling form, contact form, and on it, I'm using this index to access the second item that we have here. Because on the target, as you can see, on index 0, it will give us the first element. On index 1, it will give us the second control. On index 2, as you can see, it will give us the button. And on index 3, it will give us the last one. The way you arrange all your controls under that form is going to generate this array automatically for you. And you can use this index now to pick each one of them. So when we use index 0, we are going to get access to the first input. When you use index 1, we are going to have access to the second one. And when you use index 3, you are going to have access to the other one that you have inside your form. The way it works is dynamic, so it depends on the form. Not that it always be it's always be email, it always be no. The way you arrange your controls under the form will determine the one is going to be on the first, the second, and the third, and so forth like that. So here, the input I have first is this. This is the second control. This is the third one, and this is the fourth one. And that's the reason why you are seeing them here. The form knows about every controls that you put under it, and it's going to put all of them in a form of this array based on the way you arrange them in your HTML code there. So this one now is going to give us access to the first input, the second one, and that's what we are doing on this line 34 and 35 here. So what are we doing on line 34 and 35? We are trying to access the value that is inside the box. So for the email, which I'm creating this variable to represent the value that we're getting from that our first input, while the full name, which is going to be the value of whatever that the user type inside the second box. And now once we console log out the details, you see that we'll have access to what the user type inside the box. Now that we have access to what the user type in the box, then we can start processing the value by checking whether whatever the type is okay or it's not. Did it follow what we're expecting, or is not following what we're expecting, and so forth like that. For example, here now, I can just type one like this. This is not full name. As you can see, in our code, we are getting it that it is one, but this is not a valid full name. So we should be able to check whether whatever the user sent to us is okay or not. If it is okay, then we might change this border to another color, which is going to be green. And if it's not okay, then we'll turn the line to red, or we can even show the message under the box. And these are different stuff that you can do based on the requirements of the design there. So these are different stuff that you can do based on the requirement of the design. And if you notice last time, I showed you the GG one, where you can go to their registration page and click on register with email or phone. And here now, once you insert any wrong stuff they are not expecting from you, you say that this thing is going to bring out a message that this is invalid phone number. How does you know that it's not valid? It's because they've already put it there that whatever you have to type here have to be a level number, not letter, a level number. Even if you type number here too, like this, as you can see, it's still giving us that it is invalid number like that. And keep typing, as you can see, it will reject it because this is not how the phone number used to look like there. So in order for it to work, I need to insert a pattern. They don't care whether the number is okay. What they are looking for is the pattern of phone number. And as you can see now, it works. But this one is not my phone number, so it doesn't need to be my phone number or correct number. What they are looking for is that you insert a pattern of a phone number, because you know Nigeria phone number used to start with 070 03 030 06 04 07 09 and so forth like that. And that's what it's looking for here. So the same thing too, we should be able to handle our own form too. And I'm going to be adding this to the list of the form that the user needs to supply. So they need to supply their phone number too. So let me quickly create that. Let me quickly create the input for that. So here we're going to have the input for tel. The name is going to be telephone like this, or here instead of calling telephone, I can just say phone. Again, too, there's an input for this. We have the tel. Yeah, so I've added the third this in. I've added the phone number there. So there are now 3 inputs there. Let me remove this button for close. We don't really need it. So it's not doing anything. So let me save and bring this in. So now we have the box for email, we have the box for full name, and we have the box for phone number. So users should be able to input their phone number, should be able to input their full name, and they should be able to input their email. And we're going to start with this simple one for now. We're going to start with a simple one for now because this one is kind of easier to work with here. And again, too, if you remember, we've talked about some of these functionality in JavaScript. We talked about how to transverse the DOM. We talked about how to transverse the DOM. And what does that mean? It means from one element, you can get to another element. Again, too, we've talked about how you can insert elements on the page. We've talked about how you can insert elements on the page. Like me, from JavaScript, you create the element on the fly and you insert it into a particular side there inside the parent. We've talked about all this in. If you go back to the video, there you're going to see under the transversing the DOM or working with DOM in general. So that's where I talk about them. So I will be using all those functionality here now, because what we want to do here is like what we have on this GG. If you look at it, let me close the modal. So once the modal is closed and open again to register with phone number, as you can see, no message at all under the box. Because once you type something and you leave, that's when the message is going to pop out. So we want to be able to generate this kind of a message on the fly if whatever the user type is not following what we're expecting from them. But how do we generate this error message on the fly? So we've talked about all the functionality that we need to do this. Just that time we are not using it for something like this, and that's the reason why I'm going to be bringing them in so that we see the application of all these concepts that we've talked about when we started with the JavaScript there. Again, what I want to do here is whatever you type inside this form, once you submit this form, this thing is going to check whether this is a valid pattern of a Nigeria phone number. If it is valid pattern of a Nigeria phone number, then you don't see any error message. But if it is not, then the error message is going to pop under this box here. And that's the same thing we're going to do for this full name and the email. Just that all these one are kind of complex for now, like that. So that's the reason why I'm not going to be starting with these two. I'm going to start with this last one first. And when do we want this thing to happen? We want it to happen when the user has filled the form. We don't want to do this in like complex one, because right now, if you look at the GG one, you don't need to submit the form. Once you leave the box, it will check automatically. You can do that too, but for now, we want to start from the basic one, which means you have you fill all the details, and once you click on this sign up, that's when it will check whether you input correct stuff or not, based on the logic that we're going to be using them from JavaScript. And what is the stuff here? We want the user to be able to input number, but look at it right now. The user is typing letter, and as you can see that the browser is not complaining, because the browser did not know that they're supposed to type number here, or what they're supposed to type supposed to be 11 digit number, because you know Nigeria number, it is 11, and again it's not letter, but right now I'm typing letter. Assuming we are not going to be doing this in you submit, the user will be putting wrong details inside the box, and there is no form or there is no site you see online that they are not going to do the checking of the data that you want to input into their system, because they want their data to be reliable. Not that later when we want to call the customer now, we now check the information about their phone number, we're now seeing this SDFS whatever stuff. Doesn't make sense. So users should be able to input phone number. We don't care whether the phone number is okay for now or not, but the pattern, we need to look for that pattern there, that the user is inputting number and that number is 11 digits, and again too, it have the pattern that normal Nigeria phone number used to have, because this is not a valid Nigeria phone number. This is number, but this is not a valid Nigeria phone number there. It's valid number, but not valid Nigeria phone number, because if I submit now, it will still accept it. But we don't want this thing to be like this. So once they impute any stuff here that is not matching what we're expecting, we want to generate error under this box here. And how do we generate the error? We can talk to the parents that is holding all this in to insert the element after the particular box that we are working on. And let me do some refresh here. If I've forgotten some of these things, last time or when we were talking about the concept under the DOM, I talked about how you can create element from JavaScript dynamically. How do you create element from JavaScript? For example, here I want to create a P element. So to create element from JavaScript, don't forget you are going to be using document, then dot, create what? Create element. Then inside this stuff, you pass the element that you want JavaScript to create for you. For example, here now, as you can see, we are creating this element directly from JavaScript, and we are assigning it to this variable here, which is going to be P element. You can call this in anything, it's a variable. So I'm calling it P element like this, or if I want, I can just call it phone error element like this, or I can just call it phone element error. You can call it anything you want. But this element, we are creating it dynamically from JavaScript, but it's not yet on the page. Where do we want to add it on the page? We want to add it after this input. So we talked about all the functionality too that you can use to add elements on the screen. For example, here now, if I want to add the element after this sign up, because I want to add it inside this form. So, but right now, I want it to appear inside the form. I don't care about where it's going to be. It's going to be at the end. So here, we can insert it inside the stuff. But before we add it, the first thing we need to do is to put content inside it. Because right now, if I console log it out, you see that nothing is there. It's just empty p tag that we have. Because anytime you create your element, it's only going to give you the empty box, not the p that have content. So it's just like you're typing it from the HTML. You type your p, then after you type the p, that's what the create element is going to do. Create element is going to do something like this. There's no content inside it. So we need to put something inside it. And in order for you to put something inside it, how do you do the same thing from JavaScript? We talked about that one too. So this element here now, what we can do is just to do this phone error there like that, and we can do this inner HTML. All this thing is what we've talked about. And what I want to put inside it, what I just want to put inside is that phone or phone number, or please enter a valid phone number. Let me expand this in. And as you can see, we have this please enter a valid phone number. Then after that, I can call this my contact form, and we can append child. All these things we've talked about them. None of these things that we've not talked about. So append child. So which child do we want to add inside it? We want to add this phone number. So which means anytime this form is submitted, it's going to generate this element. It will put this text inside the element, and it will add it inside the form that we have on the page. So here now, let's test it out, even though it's not correct yet, but let's just test it out because we've not added any condition. Now fill the form with any of the details you want. Now click on the sign up. Can you see now the text is now coming out inside the box? But we don't want it to be like this inside the form. We want it to be under this box. We want it to be under this box. We've talked about all this one too. We've talked about all this functionality. So instead of you using this append child, because the append child, we always add that element at the end of every other content that is inside this parent. The parent here is form. So where is the form on our page? This is the form here. So where is the end of the form? So this is where it's going to hide the P. It's going to be something like this. This is what it's going to do. This is the P, and the message is now going to be under it. So that's what JavaScript is going to do. But we don't want it to add it to the end of the list. We want it to add it after this box here. So how do we talk to JavaScript to add it after a particular element? All this functionality too, they are there. So instead of using append, what we can do here is to use contact form, then insert before. So this thing have insert before, and this insert before here now, or let's just say insert before. So this one now allows you to insert something before a particular element. So we want to insert what? We want to insert this one. Then before what? So before what which element do you have on the page that you want to insert this element before it? So we can think of it as this sign up, because I want it to appear here. I want it to appear before this sign up. If it is for this one now, it means it's going to be before this. If it is for this one, if you want to appear here, it means it's going to be before this particular element. So insert before doesn't insert it at the end. This one we insert it before a particular element. And you know that on our page, we want it to be before this button, because I want it to be in between here. So since I want it to be here, then it's going to be before this particular button. And you know that for you to get to this button on the page, this is index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2, and this is index 3, because there are 4 elements inside it. So the input here 1, this is another input 2, this is another input 3, and this is another controls here, which is 4. And you know that the index of this one is always going to be third one in the box there. So you can use this one, or by targeting the button. So if I want, I can just target this button directly from the stuff, and it's going to give me the elements that I want there. There is a different way of targeting this element, but I'm using this method right now. So I'm using this method. And what did I want to insert? I want to insert this phone error. Before what? Before that, our button, which is going to be the contact form at index 3, because we know that that is the fourth element on the page here. So we have this form, then we're going to access it at this index 3. So save it, and let us go back to the page and try it again. So click on this get started, fill the form again, because you have to fill the form before you can submit the form. So because you can't just submit, as you can see, it will ask us to fill it first. That's this one I'm filling the frame, because I put something there. Now once you click it, can you see what is happening? The message is now coming before all this sign up. What if I want it to be under this one? I can target it too, because I know this one now is supposed to be before this, and I have access to that element already. If I want to have access to that element now for this phone number 2, I can just use 2 instead of 3. So here now what I can do is to use 2, and if I go back to the page, going back to the page, click on this, fill the form once again, and submit the stuff. You see that the message is now appearing on this. So that's how it is. From JavaScript, you can create your element dynamically there. You don't need to have everything, because there is some of these elements that you want to display. They will only come there when something happen on the page. So which means you are not going to have them inside your HTML. They will be generated dynamically from JavaScript. And how do we generate our element? We created this P element, we add the text that we want to show, and at the same time, we put it in the parent where we want it to be. But if you want it to be at the end of the parent, or at the end of the list of the children that is inside that parent, you are going to have this append child. But if you want to insert it before a particular element inside that parent, you mention the element you want to insert, and before which element that is inside that particular parent, then it's going to insert it before that line. Because I know that all this stuff here, all these controls, they are inside the form, and I can access each one of them. This one is with index 0, this is index 1, this is index 2, and this is index 3. So based on this now, I can use all these elements as reference to point to where this thing is going to be placed. But right now, I don't like the styling that is there, because if you look at the error on GG, there you see that it's always red and the text is really tiny. So I'm just going to create a class here. I'm just going to create a class, and which is going to be error like this. So this class, any element that have it, the color is going to be this red. Red is not this red that I want. Let me type red and change it. I don't like this red, it's too pure. All right, so the color is going to be this. The font size is going to be 12 pixels, because I don't want the stuff to be big. So it's going to be 12 pixels, which is that 0.75 rem, like this. I don't want it into to have, I thought I've removed all this padding and margin. Yeah, it has been removed, I guess, because the parent. So here I'm going to remove the margin that is always there at the top. So this one now is going to have a margin top, a negative margin top, so that I can remove the space. By default, all the form is having this. Where is the form? So the form, did I select my form? The form, yeah, the form, this is it. Okay, the gap is 1.125. So 1.125. I want to remove the one at the top. Let me just use 1 rem so that I just remove the spacing at the top. And what am I doing here? What I'm trying to do here is to remove this space. As you can see, there's a lot of space between this text here and the box that is meant for. So this spacing is what I want to remove. And that's what I'm using margin top to remove 1 rem from it and leave the remaining 0.125 for the spacing there. So instead of it having 1.125, then it's always going to be 0.125 there. So save this in, go back to the page, and let us try it again, but it will not work yet because I did not add a class. Again too, we've talked about how we can add a class to your element. So this phone error, then dot class list, all these things we've talked about them, and that's the reason why I always go over all these things first before using them. So we've talked about how to work with the class on your element, how to add text or how to put content in the element that you are creating dynamically from JavaScript there, and now you can add it to the page. You can go and check the video and you see all this thing back. I won't be going there again, so we have a video on it already. So yeah, clicking on this, so fill the form once again and click on it. Now can you see the error message is now proper like the way I want it? So it is this 12 pixels and it's closer to the box where it's being used like that. So what we are doing here is that we have this error that we want to display, but this error is just coming out. We've not even put any condition there. So we need to check what the user is typing first before you can actually tell them that what they type is wrong or it's right. So how do we do that? We can start using our condition here. Don't forget, we have the if else, and other conditional statements that you can use. And how do we check this? We have access to the value already through this form. So the only thing we have now is to start checking. So if the phone, so that means if we have a phone and if the length, let's start with the length first. So if the length of the phone is less or is not equal to 11, so if the length of this thing, because whatever the details that the user is sending to you, which is what we have here, we can actually check the length. For example, here now, let me copy the value, paste it in the browser directly like this, and check the length. You'll see that it will give us whatever the length of what the user typed. And this is what we are checking. Whether the length of what the user is typing is the same thing as 11 or not. That's the first condition. It must be 11. Then the second condition that we need to check is that it must be number. So whatever the user put there, it must be number. And how do you check whether the stuff that the user put there is number? We can use some basic checking. There is this thing that we're going to be talking about later on, which is regular expression. But for now, I won't be going to that one because it's another topic on its own, and we've not really talked about it before. So I'm just going to be using basic condition here. So here we can actually pass everything we want into number. So the number here, it can help you to check whether whatever you have is a number or not, like that, by just passing the value inside this number. And once you pass the stuff inside the number, if it is a valid number, as you can see, it will return whatever you have there as a number. But if it is not, can you see what is returning? Is noun. And what is this noun? Noun is just not a number. That's the full meaning of that stuff. So if it is noun that is there, then it's going to be return true. Or if it is not, then it's going to return false. So we know that that thing is not a number. But this is not a better way of checking it. There is a better way by using regular expression later on for you to check whether this thing is a number or non-number. But this is how you can do it without regular expression there that we've not talked about. So first of all, we need to check whatever they include there is 11 number. So if it is 11 number, we need to check whether it is number 2. Like the first thing, whatever you put there is the length equals to 11. If it's equals to 11, then it's okay. then we'll go to the next condition. If it's not 11, we stop there and we display the error message on the screen. And how do we do that? So this is what we need to do. So if the phone number, the length of whatever they type is not the same thing as 11, these are the error message that we want to generate there. So what we want to do is to generate this error message right now, and what we are going to do there is to tell them to enter, so please enter a valid 11, so valid 11 digits like this, 11 digits. So this is one error that I want to cater for. I don't care whether it is number right now. What I care about is the length, because we know that phone number is always 11 digits. So we are checking. If it is not the same thing as 11, that's the only time we want to see the error. If the stuff is actually 11, there's no need of showing the error. So we go into the next condition that we're going to get into later on. But for now, let's test this one out, whether it's working or not. And I don't want to be filling all this form every time. So I'm going to disable this required that I put there for now. So I put this required there, and that's the reason why I need to fill them first before it will allow me to submit. So I'm going to remove all this one for now so that I can submit without them. Again, too, I'll remove it from here since we are going to be handling them from JavaScript. So I will remove all those required. Now I can submit the form without filling all of them. So yeah, I can only focus on this and it will still work. Now, if I click on this sign up here, and it's telling me phone number is not defined. So let me check. Telling me phone number is not sorry, this is where I'm adding. It's supposed to be added here. I did not move this one inside. So save, and let us go back to the page, then run it again, fill in the details, submit, and you see what is now coming out. Please enter a valid 11 digits. Why? Because what I've input here is more than 11. Let me reload, because right now we've not really put the condition to remove this error when it is not up to that. So we are going to get into that. So again, let me input 11 numbers. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then 11. And once you click on sign up, can you see no error? Because it's seeing it as 11. So everything that is here now, if you check the length of it, you see that it is 11 digits. But it's character that I'm talking about here, not number. So if you check the length, as you can see, it is 11. And that's the reason why we are not seeing the error, because this thing is conditioned. The only time we're going to see this error is when there is the length, whatever you type, the character that you type, if the length is not up to 11, that's the only time it will show this error. So which means if I go back to the page now and remove one of the letter that I typed and submit the form again, as you can see, it's going to come outside, because now it's not 11 again, it's now 10. So this is one of the solution here. But this is not all. This is not all, because this thing now, you can actually input letter and it will work too. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And if I click on sign up, as you can see, it's still working. But this is wrong. This is not a valid number. This is not a valid number. So we need to check whether they are typing there must be a number. And how do you check whether something is a number in JavaScript? There are different ways of handling this stuff. So there are different ways of handling it. One way of handling this stuff is by passing whatever the user type into this number. Once you pass it there, it will either return number or this not a number. Once you see this not a number, it means whatever you pass into it or whatever the user is typing is not a valid number. As when I pass number there now, if I do it again with number, you see that it will actually return the number back to us. As you can see, it's returning the number back without the quotes. But if you pass something that is not number there, this is what you get back. So once you get this one now, you know that whatever the user type is not a number. But how do you check whether it's on a number? So here now, we can get the value. So consider X is going to be whatever that you want to have there. So we have this number is noun, and inside this side you are going to pass the stuff again. So you put whatever you want there, and you close the bracket. Don't forget there are two things here. So as you can see, there is number that is going to do conversion, and this one will either return number, not a number, or this number here. And we are now using this now to check whether what is here is this or not. And as you can see, it's returning false. So which means what we passed here is a valid number. But now if I pass something that is not a valid number, can you see it's returning true? So once you return true, it means what you pass here is not a valid number. But if it's returning false, it means whatever you pass there is a valid number. And we can use this one too now to check whether whatever stuff that the user passed is right or not. Again too, I want to have this else if like this. So else if, this is another condition I want to check. And what is this condition? I want to check this number dot is noun like this. And this one, what is it going to do? What it's going to do is to check, to convert everything that we have inside the stuff to number. So what do we want to do? If it is noun, it means, or if it is NaN, it means whatever the stuff the user type is not a valid number. So again, we want to create another kind of an error. So I will just duplicate, but right now, this is a bad practice. You don't want to be doing it like this. So, but for now, since I'm just explaining the basic stuff, I'll be doing this copy and paste. Assuming I'm working in real sense, I won't be doing copy and paste like this. I'll be generating it dynamically too. I will have a function that will be generating this thing for me, like that. But for now, I will just have it like this. So we are creating the element again, there. And what do we want to do? What we just want to tell them is to enter a valid number like this. So that's what we just, for us to see that the error message are different. So when they input anything inside the box and it's not the same thing as 11 character there, this is the error message we want to show. But if whatever they put there is 11 character and that thing is not number, this is another error message that we want to have. You cannot have the two message. It's only one of them because the condition are attached to each other there. So we are checking this one first. So if this one is true, it will only perform everything you have here and it will skip this S. But if this one is not true, that's when it will check this one. So which means the two of them cannot happen at the same time. You cannot see these two error message because of the condition that we are doing here. But assuming we separate them, you can actually have the two error message appear on the same at the same time there. But for now, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do too much of work because we are learning right now. We don't want to deep dive into advanced stuff there because we are still going to clean all these error message later on. We are still going to clean them when there is no error, because in case it's there before, we should be able to remove them, and we don't want to do a lot of work when we put too much of error on the different line there. So here now we can go back, test it again. Right now, what we are going to do is to put the number, save it, and as you can see, no error because this is the number and at the same time it's 11 digits. But now if I remove one letter and run it, you see that we are getting the error for enter 11 digits. But now I insert 11 digits, but the last thing that is there is a letter. So this one now is not a valid number because I'm inputting A. So if I click on sign up now, as you can see what is coming out. This, please enter a valid number. But the old error message is still there. And that's what I'm talking about. So I need to reload so that we don't see that old error message. But there's a better way of handling this thing later on. Because anytime there is no error, we need to remove it like that. So whatever that is there before, we need to clear them off before we start doing the other checking. But for now, I will just leave it like this. So click on sign up. Can you see now? Please enter a valid number. Even though this thing is 11 digits, but is not all that is number. So since all are not number, we see that there is another character here, which is not a valid number. So we have this, please enter a valid number. And now if I input the correct stuff and save it, even though everything is correct there, the error message is not going out. We are going to see how to handle this one in the next class there, because I want to be taking this in bit by bit. I don't want to rush and it will start looking like I'm doing magic stuff. So the next error that we want to handle is that whatever the number they are inputting here, it must start with either the 0A0 like this. It must start with 0A0 or it must start with 091. So all those numbers that you know in Nigeria, but I'm only going to add few of them. I don't know all of them like that. So we have 091 or we have 090, we have 070, we have 060, we have 030, and so forth like that. But I won't take care of everything. We only pick parts just to see what is going on there. But we can actually go online and see the pattern for Nigeria phone number, and you see all the way Nigeria phone number used to start. But I'm going to do only for the common one there, like that. And how do we do this thing? How do we do this stuff? So JavaScript too, or the string that we have in JavaScript, that's another thing that we can do there, which is this stuff here. We can check whether a particular string is starting with a particular text or not. For example, here now, I have Abdul Rakib here. So I have Abdul Rakib here, like this. So I can check whether this letter is starting with Abdul or not. So how do we check? We can use this start with. So this start with now, you put whatever stuff you want to check that whether this thing is starting with it. For example, I want to check whether this letter, can you see, is starting with A. So since it's starting with A, that's why it's returning true. But what if I put something that is not starting with, for example, like B, as you can see now, is false. Because there is no way Abdul Rakib will be starting with B. It's only ending with B. If you want to check the ending too, you can use the end with instead of start with. So we have the end ends with. So now as you can see, it's now returning true because Abdul Rakib is ending with B. But again too now, if I change it to A, it will be false because Abdul Rakib is not ending with A. And we can use this one too to check whether the phone number that the user type is starting with a particular digit there, because we know the pattern for the Nigeria stuff. So what we can do here is to use this condition. So here now we can add another condition again. So else if, so if this stuff now is not starting with any of this stuff, for example here, if our phone then is not starting with, so what we want to do is to use start with. So if it's not, because we want to negate the stuff, so if it's not start with like this, start with what? If it's not starting with 030, this is 1, like this. And because we need to check multiple stuff there, so and here too we check it. If it's not starting with 0, do we have 031? I don't think so, but I will just leave it like that. Again, if the phone number is not start with, so if it is not starting with 070 or and phone does not start, we have a lot of them. 071. So we have the zeros, we have 071. I think so. Right? So 080, 081. Let me copy this stuff because I'll be doing it. However, I want to arrange them according to, so this one should be 041. So 041. So like that. Close it, remove this. So let me paste the other one. So if we have this, okay. The other one is 081. Again, we have, this is the bad practice. There's a better way of handling this thing instead of doing it like this. But because we are dealing with basic stuff, so that's why I'm using this method. If I want to test this stuff, it's just simple stuff that I will type, and it will not be long like this. But that one now is a language on its own that we need to talk about first. So this is zeros. We have 091, 090, 090. We have, I think this is where I will just stop. 091. So any other number we don't want. Yeah, so these are what we have here now. So what do we want to do with all this thing? We are checking if the thing is not starting with any of this stuff. So if it's not starting with any of this stuff, we know that whatever you are imputing there is not a valid Nigeria number. So here too, we need to display the error message for that. So what do we need to copy the stuff? What we just need to do is please enter a valid Nigeria number or Nigeria phone number like this, so that we know that the error message are actually different. So what we are doing here, this is just for phone number alone. Look at the condition. It's just for phone number alone. We've not talked about the email. We've not talked about the full name. But for now, we have the phone number. We are checking whether the length is not equals to 11. If it is not, we know that the phone number you are even putting is wrong because the number must be 11. So when it is 11, another thing we are checking is that it must be numbered. Whatever you type, it must not have any letter. It must be numbered. That's what this one is taking care of. And again, this one is not taking care of that thing. It's not just any number. It must be Nigeria phone number. And you know what Nigeria phone number? We start with this thing. So this thing will return true when it is starting with it. But if it's not starting with it, it will return false. And that's what we are doing here. We are negating because we are interested in the opposite, not that it is there. We are interested that if it is not there, that's when we want this thing to happen, not when it is there. Because if this negation is not there, it will only give you when that's when it will not be showing the error when it is there. But that's not what we want. What we want to do is that when the thing is not there, when any one of this thing is not there, that's the only time we want to show the error. But if it is there, you don't want it to show any error at all, like that. So save, go back to the page, and now we can check everything there. But we've checked out the other one. The last one is what we want to check. So I want to impute the number. Even though this number is correct, but it's not a valid phone number. But I'm getting this. Oh, all right. I've missed my S here. That's because it's supposed to have S. This is what I'm supposed to type there. So I have this stuff. So starts with, yeah, as you can see, there is S there. So in our own code, we are missing the S. So let me select all of them. All of them. So go to the end, put the S that is missing because we are calling what JavaScript did not know about. So we need to call the correct stuff. Clear this one, bring it back, put the number there, sign up. Can you see now? Please enter a valid Nigeria phone number. Even though this is a number, but it's not valid phone number. So in order for it to be a valid phone number, it needs to start with 00 or start with the other one that we know. For example, here now 081 411 611 77 like this. And if I click, can you see now? No error. But if I remove this 08 here and I change it to maybe 05, I think that is 5 too. Yeah, Blue has 5. So if I click on sign up, as you can see now, it's telling us that it is wrong. And whereas it's supposed to be valid because Glow number used to start with 05. So I'll move this one down and add 5 to the list to 050 like this. Or yeah, I think my Glow number is that 050. What's this stuff? Let me even check it. So we want to be able to have this, and now we are able to add our error. But lastly, before we call it a day, because we have 3 minutes left, we should be able to remove any error that is there before. Let me see, can we do it in this class? Because I need to explain some other concept too before we start doing this. Because now look at it, we have this error here, here, which is telling us that we did not insert. So we have this error. We have the error. Because if you look at GG, if there is any error there, and later on, you later put the correct stuff, for example, 411 611 77, can you see that the error disappear? So when you put the correct stuff, our own tool should be able to remove the error that is there. For example, if I remove this wrong stuff and I replace with 091 411 611 77 and click on sign up, this error message should disappear. But right now, the error message did not disappear. So what can we do? What we can do here is to check, like if everything is okay, because you know that when you get here, it means there's error. When you get here, there's another error. When you get here, there's another error. But here now we can use our S. Once you get here now, we know that we are not facing any error. So what we need to do is to remove whatever error that might be there before, because you don't know whether the user actually have error the first time they try it or not. You can't know. So you have to make sure that you clear the error by just removing the stuff. And that's what we can do under the S, because we know that this S will work anytime there is no error at the top. For example, here now we can just have no error. The only time you have this console log is when JavaScript is not seeing this condition, is not seeing this condition, or the again too is not seeing this condition, because all of them will be false. And since they are false, that's the only time it will come to this S. But if none of them, if any one of them is not false, then the one is seen first, that's where it will stop. To just perform this and skip the rest. So which means if we go back to the page now and impute something that is wrong, for example, like this one, as you can see, that message of no error is not coming out. But now if I clean this thing, impute the correct phone number 081 411 whatever stuff like this, then click on sign up. There, can you see now we have no error. So when there is no error, we need to clear any error message that is showing to the user on the screen. And how do we do this? It's quite easy. We just come here and check whether that p tag is there or not. If it is there, we remove it. If it is not there, then we just forget about it. So which means under this S, we need to check where that element, because you can't just remove anything that is not there. If you try to remove something that is not there, you get error. Again too, you don't know whether that element is there. So in order for you to know whether that element is there, what we can do is to call this our phone here, but this is the phone element. We can check if there is element that follows it, and the element that follows it is having class error. If it is there, we know that that thing have error, but if it is not there, it means there is no error. And what do we need to do? First thing we need to do is to target the element, and this element, which is going to be a phone element like this. Don't forget this is the value. That's because we've extracted the value. That's why I'm calling directly from here. So this one now, we can use the next. Don't forget we have this next element sibling. We've talked about this one too. So this next element sibling, I just want to check. There. So let me just phone error. So let me just say phone error directly from here. It's going to be this. So next element sibling like this. Or let me console log it out so that you can see what is going on. So the next element sibling, we are going to check. Then let me console log it out. Let me console log it out, which is going to be this phone. Let me call it phone error. So next element. Let me call it next element. This is going to be next element. Then we need to check if this next element here. So the next element, so we need to check the condition. So if the next element class late like this, if it is contain, we talked about this one too, whether it contain this error. Anytime there is a class error, we know that the element we are getting there is just a p tag, like that. So if it is there, what we just want to do here is to just do remove. We've talked about all these things. We've talked about all these things that I'm doing right now. We've talked about them. We are just using it here. So what did I do here? This element, what is the element? Is this phone number here. I'm checking the next element that follows it. So the next element that follows it will either be this button or the error message that we are seeing on this screen. So let me go to the HTML to select it. So this is how it is on the HTML. Can you see? The next element that follows it will either be this P element or it will be this button. So there's no way that we know that it is P or it is button. So in order for me to know, that's the reason why I'm checking whether that element that follows this one here, that follows this one, is having class error. So, and you know that the one that follows it that have class error is this P. If it can find it, we know that we're on the P. But if it is not having this error, we know that it is button. So if it is button, we don't want to do anything. But if it is having class error, as you can see here, we just remove that element. So when that element is there, when there's an element that have class error, remove it. But if it is not there, don't do anything. That's why you see that there's no S. Because I don't want to do anything when the element that is there is just button. If it is button that is there, I don't want to remove the button. So don't do anything. But if it is not the button that follows that element, it means there's a p tag there with this class error. So if it is there, just remove it because everything is okay already, because there is no error with the console log that we have here. So let's try it out and see whether it's working. So I'm going to try it first with when we don't even have any error at all. And that's the reason why you will not know whether that thing is there or not, because you don't know whether the first thing that the user will do is correct or not. You can't just assume that the user will not correct at the first try. No, some people will put the correct stuff there, but like this one now. If I click on sign up, as you can see, there is no problem and that element is not there, and we are not removing anything because there is no error. If I go back to this console now, as you can see, it's printing out no error, and we did not remove any element, and that's why we need to do the checking. Because if you just go and remove anything that is not there, JavaScript will give you error because it will not be able to find that element because it's not there. But now imagine that when the user try it for the first time or the second time or the third time, because there's always going to be an error at that time. So now if I put this in, as you can see, there's an error. But since there's an error, can you see that the element is not there? Again too, let me remove this one, trying it with another set of error like that. But that one now will be putting something here. But let me put the correct number now and click on stop. Can you see now the error disappeared because of the condition that we have here. So this one, if there is no error, it will check the next element that follows that input. So if the next element that follows it is having this class error, it means that user has already made a mistake before they get the correct stuff. So we want to remove that mistake, and we want to remove the error, and that's the reason why we have this one here. But it will only happen when there is a class error there. If it's not there, the element that follows it, then we know that the user did not make any mistake before, so we don't need to remove anything on the page. And this is what you always do every time. And instead of you handling all this one yourself later on, we are now going to be using a framework to simplify the process. So all the things you are doing here now, you can use a framework to quickly work on them instead of you targeting the next element, the adding and removing yourself like this. The framework will be the one that will be doing the magic, and your own job is just to tell it the element you want to display, when to display it. But how is it going to display on the screen? You don't need to care about that one. The way you arrange your code, that's the way it's going to put everything on the screen there. But using JavaScript directly, you have to be the one that will do everything. And that's the reason why you need a framework when you are working on a bigger project. Just look at it. We're only working with one control, which is just phone number. We've not really talked about email. We've not talked about full name. The only thing we are talking about since is just phone number. And look at a lot of things we have to type just to display simple stuff on the screen. Now imagine you want to do the same thing that the GG is doing here. It will really take you a lot of time and code to achieve this functionality here. So, and framework will be coming in later on. After 2 classes that we're going to be having there, I will be diving directly into framework because there's no more time again. We need to leave all this basic stuff. And yeah, that's going to be all for today. This is 1 hour something minutes already. So we meet in the next class. Let me stop recording.